I arrived in Wuhan in June, and I arrived in Wuhan because initially I just came there to travel, and I had a couple friends there, so it was easier for me to come to Wuhan rather than go somewhere else in China where I don't know anyone. So I came to Wuhan and I stayed there for about a month, and I just liked it so much that I wanted to stay longer. So I kind of made the arrangements for myself to stay. I like the city itself because it's a lot more developed than people think it is, and also just the lifestyle seems a little more relaxed than where I'm from in Vancouver, because Vancouver is kind of known as like the LA of Canada, so it's very busy and uh, lots of things going on. People constantly talk about like work and just it's it's super fast paced, so I think Wuhan is a lot more relaxed in that sense. In January, they announced that there were going to be evacuation flights from Wuhan back to Canada. But I believe that they were going to bring everyone that they evacuated to Ontario, I believe, was where the military base was, that they were going to keep everyone for quarantine. Um, but I had contacted them initially and let them know that I'm in Wuhan and I would like to go home. Because they didn't specify the details, they just kind of announced that there was going to be an evacuation flight. So when they emailed me back, they emailed me with all the details, and they said that there was a no pets policy for the flights. And when I read that, I initially replied to them and kind of asked them to specify about the policy, because they had mentioned that it was going to be for this specific flight. And so I asked them, is it for this one flight or is it for all of your evacuation flights? And they said that it was for all of the evacuation flights. So that's why I had to stay behind, because I wasn't going to leave my cat. Actually, I adopted her in Wuhan. I adopted her a couple months after I had just arrived here. I think it was August was when I adopted her. And so I've had her for a while now, and I just can't imagine leaving her behind, because she's been here with me throughout the whole quarantine and everything. And I definitely want to bring her home with me because it's better for me to be back home, and I think it's better for her to be back home as well. It's gotten a lot more strict in the sense that they're not really allowing people to even leave our little residential area anymore, which is kind of weird, because you would think, are things really getting better then, or are they getting worse? But I think this is just kind of the last step that they're taking to ensure that people are not going outside before they reopen Wuhan to everyone else. Personally, it's okay, because of course, when the epidemic first begun and Wuhan was first closed, it was a lot of panic and a lot of just unsettling feelings. But I think now that we've kind of been here for 2 months now under lockdown, it's just become a normal part of life, and people aren't really complaining about it too much anymore. We're just all waiting here for Wuhan to reopen. I think just like humans in general, we can adapt to a situation quite easily. And I think maybe for some people, it even takes a month just for it to become a habit for you. So for me, it definitely took me a month just to kind of realize that this is a normal thing. But I think that for the rest of the world, everyone just should stay calm, because a lot of people are really freaking out right now. And um, it's just something that I really want to stress to everyone, because I always check my social medias and I see, on Twitter, people are posting, that there's panicking about staying at home for a week. But I think that if you guys just keep a positive mindset, you guys can just kind of get yourself out of that panic, then everything will be better. Well, I try to just distract myself as much as possible, because I think the reason why people start to think negatively of it is because they sit there and they think about the situation for a really long time, and you start to overthink certain situations. But I think once the government really put down some strict rules about people going out and all that, I think that's when we started to see a difference and when things started to get better. Because the one thing that I've noticed, which is a difference between how we're handling the situations in different countries, is the amount of like the strictness that we're laying down on everyone. And I think China handled it really well, because I think the stricter you are about these rules, the more people are willing to follow those rules, especially if there are like serious consequences. And that's kind of how I think Wuhan got out of it so quickly. And I think, there are many predictions that in the States, for example, that a lot of people are going to be infected. I saw an article being written that said that I think 23 million Americans were predicted to be infected, just because no one is staying at home and people are still continuing to go out. But um, that's the biggest difference that I've seen, is just that we're now coming out of the virus, so it's a lot better here. But it's not absolutely perfect how they handled it, because there was that whole situation when the virus first occurred, how the Chinese government was hiding the real numbers and everything. So, I mean, with everything, that there's good and bad, but I think the one thing that they did really well was just put those restrictions, because everyone is definitely staying home and everyone is wearing face masks. What I do is I just kind of go about my normal routine. And since I do work from home, it is easier for me to do that. So I just keep myself occupied by watching movies or watching YouTube videos. Stuff like that is just something that you normally do anyways. And then when you do that, you're kind of like, oh, nothing's really going on. I'm just like doing my normal routine. And then your mind kind of thinks that this everything is fine, everything is normal. We have like that little courtyard in front of our building that we can go out, so they have a couple benches there, and I see people will sit outside sometimes, or there's like some little pathways people will walk around. And I've seen a lot of people try and get their exercise, so they'll go jogging around this little courtyard area or do some stretches outside. So that's been really good to see people do. But other than that, we're not really allowed outside in the neighborhood anymore. Yeah, it's really difficult, because in our area we have one convenience store that is open, so everyone kind of goes there to get their food, and it's not crowded because everyone goes at different times. But uh, what you do is you would go to the convenience store and you just tell them what you want to buy, because they're not even allowing anyone inside of the store anymore. So you just tell them what you want and they'll get it for you and just give it to you, and you pay for it. But yeah, it's been really difficult, because even then, that store doesn't have everything, right? So you kind of have to see what they have in stock at the time. Like sometimes, they might not have tomatoes, or other times they do have tomatoes. So you just kind of have to go every so often to check. But even then, I don't go out every day to see what's going on. I try to limit myself maybe once a week and get enough food so that I can just stay at home comfortably. Whenever I go out, I definitely wear a face mask, 100%. It because it's mandatory here. It's one of the rules here. And I've even seen other people wear gloves or wear hats to protect their ears, because the virus can enter through your eyes, your ears, your nose, and your mouth. So any opening, really. So I've seen a lot of people wear glasses or goggles, face masks, and earplugs or hats just to cover their ears. And but what I personally do is I just wear a face mask, and sometimes I'll wear a hat as well. And I always carry hand sanitizer with me and tissues because when we're opening doors or even just pressing elevator buttons, we make sure to cover our hands just in case anyone who was infected did touch those areas. But other than that, uh, I haven't really been doing too much. Of course, the number one thing is just to wash your hands. Um, but other than those things, I haven't followed any other, I guess, precautions. Whenever I go out, like to the convenience store, for example, I have to talk to the security staff and talk to the people who work in the convenience store. But um, in like a physical sense, like say if like I wanted to give someone a hug, I haven't given someone a hug in 2 months, which is really difficult, and I haven't even seen my friends here in China in 2 months because we're all in different districts, and they've completely blocked off bridges and kind of any way to get into different districts. So um, yeah, it's been pretty difficult in that sense because uh, you start to feel really alone, and even messaging your friends on your phone doesn't seem to kind of fill that gap. I think the biggest lesson is just to be more considerate of other people and other people even in other parts of the world, because the one thing that I've kind of uh, been able to see through social media is just that a lot of people tend to really focus on what's going on in their country, which makes sense because you're there and it's all happening around you. But I think people should really consider others. For example, a lot of people in America seem to really be freaking out right now about the coronavirus, and they've only been on lockdown for a week. And for me, I just kind of have to sit there and look at all of this and think that, there are others in different parts of the world, even like Italy, who have been under quarantine for much longer. And I think that instead of kind of voicing that, oh, my life is so difficult right now, I've been on lockdown for a week, we should really consider people in other parts of the world that have been on lockdown for longer, and see if there's anything that you can even do for them, because we're kind of in a society right now where everyone just tends to focus on themselves, but I think we should just help everyone out.